Another exciting episode of A Gamer's Guide to Productivity. Of course, I'm your host, Nico Pingan, and today we have a special guest joining us. In this episode, we are diving into the world of fitness, health, and gaming with Jordan. I'm a butcher your last name. Yaklin?
That's close. That's close. Yaklin. Yak like the
Yaklin.
animal.
Okay. Also known as the Nerdy Fitness Coach. Jordan is an online health and lifestyle coach who empowers guys in their 30s to reclaim their health, lose weight, and regain confidence, all without sacrificing the foods and hobbies they love. With a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science and extensive experience coaching professional and Olympic level athletes, Jordan combines his passion for fitness and nerd culture to help bridge the gap between the community and the health and fitness industry. So guys, get ready for an insightful and inspiring conversation. Get ready to level up. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want ad-free listening, make sure to check out the Spotify and the Apple links below. Other than that, Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the kind intro.
Oh, certainly, because when you're a man that studies, when you're a man of a great culture, you have to make sure that everybody is aware. Education is important, but having culture is pretty cool too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Knowledge is power, right?
Oh, certainly, and so that everybody knows immediately off rip, what is your story. You have an amazing story, a fitness journey, and just for those that may not know, what is your story?
Yeah. Yeah. So to kind of give you maybe a not so TLDR of my origin story. So I guess the best place to start would be how I kind of got into exercise science and fitness. And so always kind of was a not in shape kid. And then I found football in seventh grade, and that was kind of where, as a seventh grader, that's kind of where I found my place, as much as a
Mm,
seventh grader can. And so go flash forward to high school, still playing football, and I'm noticing that the high school football coaches that were also our strength coaches were doing things wrong. And this is a
mm,
14-year-old freshman me knowing that you're not supposed to bench with false grip called suicide grip. And so I just knew things like that, and our coaches were teaching that, and they had very improper coaching techniques. And so I decided to correct the wrongs of my forefathers, so to speak, and go to school for proper strength conditioning. Got my bachelor's in exercise science, got my master's in exercise physiology, graduated on Star Wars Day, May the 4th, 2019.
hey,
Yeah,
okay, I
yep,
see you.
yep. And so then I wanted to be a high school strength coach where I wanted to teach the basic fundamentals and foundational movements to novice lifters, future freshmen mostly. And so that
Hmm.
way they could be the best version of themselves possible. Not
Right,
that I would have played, professional football if I had the best coaching, but I felt like I maybe left some stuff on the table
right,
because I
right,
didn't
right.
have a super strong
Oh, of
foundation.
course, of course.
Yeah, yeah. And so, like I said, that was 2019. I'm applying. I'm essentially telling my local high schools that they need to create a position and hire me. That did not end well. And then about a year later, March of 2020, the whole world shut down. And so
Mhm.
that really shifted my gaze from in-person strength conditioning to the online world. And so I decided to kind of pursue this online coaching, something that I've heard of, dip my toe in before, but due to the pandemic, I was like, all right, let me really see what this has to offer. So kind of dabbled in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And one night I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how can I have two passions in life. I've been, academically going into exercise science. I spent 8 years getting a graduate degree, and I feel very passionate about that. And then I've been a nerd since essentially birth. My first video game was the original Fat Boy Game Boy at age 3, and
Hey,
so and so I was like, how can I essentially be the bridge to these two how can I essentially blend these two
right.
passions? And so one night I'm laying down in bed, and I had this very same bookshelf behind me that was actually right next to our bed in our old apartment, and
Mhm.
it has Dungeons and Dragons books, and then behind my ebooks there are fantasy novels, and then these two shelves are boring health and fitness books, health profession books, and personal development. And so I was like staring at it, I'm like, man, how can I do this? And it dawned on me, he's like, idiot, why don't you just blend the two? Like, why don't you tailor your services towards gamers? or nerds in
Mm.
general. And so that was kind of the inception of Phoenix Performance Coaching, where I try to empower sedentary gamers really to just reclaim their health and really build the confidence to be the main character again, because I feel like a lot of people live life as an NPC of their own life, and everyone deserves to be the main character of their own life. And so that is kind of how we got to where we are now.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And the reason I asked that, because on your on your website, guys, check out his website. It's amazing. If you're a nerd, if you like anything nerdy, if you like any of the visuals that I have, you're definitely gonna like the visuals on his website. He has a big phoenix. It's very red-esque, very fiery, very just gamer-ish. And so I did want to ask you, how how did you decide to make a difference from when you were at your heaviest to get back into the swing of things?
Yeah. So kind of going along the route of, being talk about being an NPC. When I was in grad school, through a combination of being burnt out from one specific class, and we'll call it a dirty bulk gone wrong, I gained about 35 pounds in a semester. And
Mm,
at that point, I was a 265-pound, fairly overweight personal trainer, getting a master's degree in exercise physiology. So there's a lot of mental friction there. And
mm,
graduated, and I held on to that weight for about 2 years, a year into grad school, and then the year after grad school. And so I just felt there was always like a mental fog. Looking back, I always felt like there was a mental fog, but you don't really know it when you're in it. And
right.
so what I would do is, since I wasn't happy with where I was, like I said, I graduated and I spent a whole year trying to get a job. And within that time, I was a part-time personal trainer at the local YMCA. And so again, graduated with a master's degree, was working part-time, mostly for minimum wage. Again, more mental friction there.
Right.
And so just really was not happy with where I was, both physically and professionally. And so I decided to double, triple, quadruple down into my D&D homebrew world and just really dive into that and build that out the best that I could.
Hmm.
And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. If I was watching TV, chances are my eyes were glassed over and I was just thinking about that campaign world building, future story beats, working about where the campaign's going, fleshing out characters. And so like every spare second that I had, all my mental energy was going into that. And so I was really escaping real life to dive into a fantasy world. And
Right.
for those 2 years ish, I was an NPC in my own life. And I was lucky enough, in all honesty, the pandemic helped me with that, but I was lucky enough to kind of pull myself out of that. And I decided it was time to make a change, and lost about 45 pounds, 45 to 50 pounds doing that. And really felt like I kind of reclaimed that main character status. And it's crazy when, because I talk about a fog, like feeling like it lifted. There was like so many
Hmm.
opportunities that were right in front of me. Online coaching being a big one, where it's like I've had this at essentially my fingertips the whole time, and I
Right.
never saw it. I never even acknowledged it because I was so worried about, or so focused on
Right.
escaping into a fantasy world. And so I kind of made that my mission and passion to be that. I like to call myself a hero maker. I like to say that I'm Phil to Hercules. I'm the one that's going to help you bust the measuring tape with your biceps, and
Yeah.
and so that was kind of how I pulled reclaimed my main character status, if you will. And to kind of dive into why I'm more passionate about gamers is because I'm sure we've all had it. We're all hanging out, either Friday night with the boys, or we're having a D&D session, all
Hmm.
sitting around the table, and your one buddy there might have just gotten bad news from the doctor. Maybe it's maybe he's hypertensive, or maybe he just got diagnosed pre-diabetes. Buddy over here is just wheezing while he's just sitting, and then we all order one large pizza per person, right? And
Oh my
so
goodness.
that's not an uncommon story. And
Right.
so I've seen that the health and fitness industry has really kind of shunned everybody else and
Hmm.
only panders to people within the health and fitness industry. And so I wanted to be that bridge to that. I wanted to bridge that gap and say, look, you can be healthy. You deserve to be healthy. You should be the main character of your life, and you can live a healthy lifestyle without sacrificing the foods and hobbies and the games that you love. And it does not have to be anything crazy like what you see on Instagram with all the shirtless influencers doing obscene exercises and talking about obscene diets and stuff like that, and how all of that is just more or less bullcrap. And try to show you how to do it sustainably and realistically.
And so just to give a potential individual that might be interested, like what kind of services would be something that you would offer them in terms of like a system that maintain a healthy physique and whatnot?
Yeah. So we offer true one-on-one coaching, and I say true one-on-one because a lot of online coaches advertise as one-on-one coaching, but what they really do is they throw you into a Facebook group with a bunch of other clients, and then you might hear from the coach like once a month in a group coaching call. And so with this, I'm with the client every step of the way. We create customized workout programs together. Like this is a very collaborative effort where the client is an active participant. So we work together to create an exercise routine and a nutrition routine that fits their lifestyle. And it's largely customized. So I can't exactly say what it would be for each person because like I said, we really do customize it. And then there's so many touch points. We do a lot of text-based communication back and forth daily. We have check-in calls regularly. And so there's a lot to it. There's a lot more than me throwing into a Facebook group to be self-supported by other clients and hearing from me once a month. I'm really in the trenches with you. I'm the Sam to your Frodo, if you will.
So it's like the extreme accountability buddy, making sure that you don't get distracted by the ring, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Because
My precious.
exactly, exactly. And I do such high frequency touch points because I like to have a small loop for small feedback loop. And
Hmm.
so if something's not working, I want to know like now so we can nip it now rather than hear from you in 2 weeks and then so 2 weeks gets wasted. And so because I've had people where they just won't do they won't do a whole week's of workouts because they hate one exercise. And so I'm like, look, we could easily fix that. Like communication is big for me. And then um, smaller feedback loops where we're just like constantly changing things as we go.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. That's essentially the opportunity to work alongside you. It's being alongside somebody that already went through it, knows what it takes to continue going through it, and knows how to speak through it. So that's actually pretty cool. And I also wanted you to elaborate on how you think the principles of gaming can actually be applied to fitness and health to make them more engaging and effective and easier to complete, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I think the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm not in love with the idea of gamifying things because I feel
Hmm.
like it makes things shallow in a sense. And so a good example of that is how many live life like an RPG apps are out there. You download
Mm,
them, you open it once or twice. It's like, oh, this is cute. Then the novelty wears off. You don't open it and it sits on your phone for 6 months until you get pissed off at it. You delete it.
right.
Right. And so, although I'm not in love with that, I do. I don't apply game. I don't gamify my coaching, but we do talk a lot about D&D and video games and pretty much a whole lot of things. So there's a lot that common interest, but some um, attributes or abilities that you gain from gaming can easily be applied to um, working out and improving your health, improving your fitness, because it's leveling up in life is very much like leveling up in a video game. I know that's kind of a
Mm,
meme or cliche, but it's true, right? You work hard, and so the biggest thing that I could do, the biggest thing that I could, I guess, preach, so to speak, is to start at your level. If you want to, we want to talk video game terms, you are not going to be fighting the end boss at level 1, right?
right.
And so people think that on January 1st, they're going to be going straight to the end boss. And so what we need to do is figure out where your starting point is and start there and then build up and progress and level up. So that way, eventually you can reach that end boss, which for you might be 5 1-hour sessions at the gym with nothing but whole food diet and yada, 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 what everyone tries to do January 1st. Right. And so
Right.
instead, you can spend 3 to 6, maybe even 12 months building up to that point. And then probably then you'll realize that you don't really need to do something that extreme anyway. And so just kind of starting at your level is, I think, the biggest application that you could do to kind of have that translation and improve your health.
What would you do in order to measure what level somebody is at, especially somebody that's coming new? They might not really know too much about how to gauge themselves. So what's something that, would be a good indicator?
Yeah. So we actually hop on a pretty extensive call. This at this point will probably be the third call that we have had at this point, to where I call it a session 0. If you're not a D&D fan, then it's more like a character creation session. And so we actually figure out where they are currently. What are they doing for exercise now? What are they doing for nutrition now? And start from there. And let's say no exercise experience, haven't worked out since high school. So for haven't worked out in the last 15 years, nutrition is always fast food, takeout, etc. We start there. And so it might be a couple body weight movements that you can do behind your computer desk. No equipment needed. You only need a small space, and then figuring out some lower calorie options while still going to the fast food, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, and people might kind of perk their ears at that. But most people eat fast food out of convenience, not out of financial reasons, because we sure as hell know it's not cheaper. And also, they probably have some form of lack of confidence in the kitchen, and so fast food is going to be the best option. So instead of me saying, all right, well, we need to start cooking, I first would most likely want them to find lower calorie options while eating out, and
Mm-hmm.
then maybe have like one day a week where we start cooking. And I have cooking and shopping guides that we work with and build, help them build confidence in the kitchen. And so again, long story short, start with where they are and build up, rather than me saying this is a cookie cutter workout program and meal plan. Good luck. I'll check in 4 weeks.
How do you think it's important that somebody comes to you with honesty about where they're currently at, how they're currently feeling, and how what they're trying to achieve is sometimes either mismatched with their efforts?
Yeah, good question. Good question. So honesty and open communication are probably the two most important things when it comes to a coach, or at least working with me, I'll say.
Hmm.
Because if you do lie and say, "Oh yeah, I go to the gym easily 3 days a week," a lot of times I can sniff out that bullshit. I've been in it long enough to know whether you're being honest or not.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times people say, I try to go to the gym 3 times a week. Like, okay, you try. How many do you actually do? And they're like, oh, most of the time once. I'm like, okay, well, let's start with one and then build up from there. Because if I took them at surface value, I could do a 3 day a week workout program, and that could be great on paper, perfect on what they need, based on what they said, perfect. But it's too much because it doesn't fit their the realistic lifestyle. And
Mm.
so being open and honest with not only me, but also themselves, saying, yeah, I try to go to the gym 3 times a week, but I really only go once a week now that I think about it. Those types of revelations are stuff that a lot of people don't think about. And I think a large part of that is nutrition. Everybody underreports. And so like, oh yeah, I don't eat that much. I might have like, I skip my breakfast, maybe a small lunch, and then really a small dinner, and that's it. And then I'm like, okay,
Mm.
well, what do you do for snacking? Oh, I snack at night after dinner. I'm like, okay. Well, let's start logging that food. And before you know it, they're eating like 1,200 calories and they're mindless snacking, because they're watching their favorite show, and before they know it, they just killed a entire bag of Doritos. And so, being honest with that, and then just being more mindful of everything will help.
Now, how would you then advise that somebody works through on trying to stick to a routine? An individual that might be happy to want to do it, but it's hard to do something that maybe you're not really accustomed to at first. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So you're saying the desire and the want is there, but maybe the motivation's not there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants to change. Nobody wants to be on my 600-pound life, right? And so saying you don't,
Ah! My fault. That was just funny.
right?
Oh, that was funny.
Sure. Nobody wants to be unhealthy, right?
Right, right.
And so saying that you don't want it enough is not helping anybody. And so
Hmm.
the problem is they don't have the motivation. And I define motivation as the amount of energy that you have to put forth towards a specific task. So think about it as you have mana slot, or mana pool or spell slots.
Right.
And so a lot of times we create a workout program that might require this much level of energy or this much mana,
Hmm.
and our motivation's coming in here, and so we can't bridge that gap, so therefore we don't do anything. And so what we do is, and this is what I do with my clients, is we create contingencies, so that way wherever your motivation is, you can adjust the task to match that energy level, or match that
Mm.
energy demand, or mana pool, whatever the hell you want to call it. your spouse thoughts. And so say this is a full 60-minute gym workout, but you're not really feeling it. Could you do something at home? Maybe not. What if you just go for a walk? And so kind of figuring out where that is. And the best way to really do that is to start here and then build it up from there. So
Hmm.
let's say you don't want to go to the gym. Well, can you at least put your workout clothes on? Yeah, sure, you can do that. Okay. Now, can you at least go outside, maybe check the mail? Sure, I could do that. Then maybe take a lap around the block since you're already out there. Sure. And then you can see how that can go up. And then eventually you meet it. And then what happens is normally we'd often think that motivation creates action, but it's actually reversed. So you're now performing actions, putting your shoes on, going out, going for a walk, checking the mail, and now you're feeling more motivated. And so we can bump it up to maybe a longer walk, then bump it up to maybe a home workout where you're doing some body weight stuff at home. And then before you know it, you just did a full workout and when you didn't want to get up off the couch. And so starting off with the smallest possible action can really yield big results. And it's stupid. I'll tell my clients, like, when you're not feeling it, just put your shoes on. And they look at me kind of dumbfounded. I'm like, trust me, it'll work. Just put your shoes on, because literally anything to get you up off the couch is what's needed to get you to make bigger, longer movements. And so putting your shoes on, or I'll tell them sometimes if you're not feeling it, just do the warm up exercises of the workout and then exit the app, like, or complete the workout and exit the app. I'm totally fine with that. And sometimes people do that. Sometimes people are like, you know what, I got up and I got moving and I was able to do the full workout. It's like, yeah, that's what happens.
So it's essentially, instead of trying to, as you mentioned, go to the final boss on your first couple of attempts of doing workouts, it's very important to break it down to such a simple step-by-step process that all you really have to do is essentially start the first domino.
Mhm.
And then as you continue to build more action, the momentum just comes alongside on a symbiotic level.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Action creates motivation, and a lot of people think it's the opposite.
Dang. And for those that, let's say, are thinking about having that motivation to go out and do something, what kind of practical tips would you say, like, once you have that motivation to do something, what would you say for them to do? Put the shoes on and just go, take a lap around the house, or?
Yeah, I would say start as small as possible. Um, I would say do something that feels too easy, whether that's going for a walk, going to the gym and doing some machines, whatever that is for you. Do something that feels like it's too easy and just almost not enough. Because what that does, and this is what I do with my clients, and I tell them this, is it creates that, it's called change talk. I can do more, I can do more, I can do more. This is too easy, I can do more. Right. And so what that does is you're empowering yourself to do more. You're saying, I can easily do more. This is too easy. I can do more than this. Right. Rather than what a lot of people do January 1st, create a super high barrier to entry program.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't meet those expectations and they say, this is too much for me. I can't do this. This isn't the right time. They throw their hands up in the air saying, I'm a failure. This just isn't in the cards. I'm just going to be this way for the rest of my life. Right. And that promotes disdain talk, where you just constantly want to stay where you are because you're feeling very unmotivated, or even, demotivated to do anything, because you were overreaching. Essentially, I got a Pokemon shirt on. You got out of Route 1 and went straight to the Elite Four. And obviously that's not going to work. And so do what you can at the lowest possible action.
Now, what strategies would you provide for those that come to you, complete newbies, around January 1st, looking for, that final boss? And it's like, hey, I'm going to throw some money at you, get me to that final boss level in 20 days.
Yeah, I'll be straight up with them. I'll tell them a lot of times their goals are realistic. Like, I want to lose 100 pounds in a year. Like, that's aggressive, but we could do it. I might tell them we should maybe shoot for a year and a half or something like that. So
Mm.
I'll try first. I'll make sure they know that their goals are realistic. So if somebody's like, I need to lose 50 pounds in 2 months, I'm like, okay, well, that's not realistic.
Right.
And so, like, let's pump the brakes on that. I will set realistic expectations. And I do this during the one of the calls before we even sign up. So I'm not trying to sell somebody a bad bill of goods. Um,
Mm.
and so I'll let them know realistically. And then I kind of joke that a big part of my big responsibility that I have, like a big part of my coaching responsibility, is just pulling the reins back. And so like, a lot of times when people sign up with a coach, sign up with a gym, personal trainer, whatever it is, that's when they're extremely motivated. it is that January 1st, all or nothing perfectionist mindset coming in. They're like, awesome, I'm going to do 3 days a week. I'm going to do it all, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's pump the brakes. Let's start with where you are and build up, because I'd rather slowly build up. I like to say like a seed, we plant a seed and it's going to grow organically,
Mm,
than try to jump the gun and, go straight hard out of the gate. Because I'd rather go from 0 to 25 to 50 to 100 than go from 0 to 100 back down to 0. And so that's what I tell them. Like I said, I pull the reins back and I just try to educate them on why doing what they've done for their entire life isn't going to work this time around, and we need to make a change.
right. And since it is, you know, Men's Mental Health Month, I did want to ask, what role does mental health play in your fitness coaching? And how do you help clients address it, if at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, um, disclaimer, I obviously will stay within my scope. And if somebody has like diagnosed mental health issues, I would strongly recommend they seek a mental health professional. I'm actually working with a few mental health professionals to be able to sharpen my skill set, but all while staying within my scope of practice. And so, with that said, I have a lot of people, motivation wax and wanes. People have down times. People feel, in depressive states. And so, a lot of times we'll hop on calls. I call them saving throw calls. If we need to do something quickly, be like, look, all right, what's going on? Let's talk through it. And a lot of times what happens is, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but when people kind of get into this mental state, it's it's called catastrophizing. You're always thinking of the worst case scenario of everything, everything, everything. They get stuck in this hamster wheel of negative thought, what I call it, where they're constantly thinking about what could go wrong.
Hmm.
And so sometimes I'll even address it. And I learned this from a licensed mental health counselor. He's like, ask them what the chances are that that will happen. What are the chances that you're going to get fired, lose your job, lose your house, lose your spouse, and all of that? They're like, oh, well, like 0. Okay. So like, what would happen? Okay, so it's less than 1%, we'll say, for sure. Okay, now let's say what would happen if you do lose your job tomorrow. What's going to happen? Are you going to lose your house? Like, well, no, I got savings, blah blah blah. And so then you talk them through what would happen if the quote unquote worst case scenario actually did happen, and then
Hmm.
it allows them to talk themselves through it. And so that's something that you can do, by yourself. I'm becoming more and more of a fan of journaling in one of two ways. So there's like the gratitude journal where you can say, I guess there's 3 ways. One is the gratitude journal where you just come up with at least one win from the day. And
Hmm.
so that's good to do at night, because a lot of our thoughts, a lot of our minds race at night because we don't give ourselves time to actually get lost in our thoughts throughout the day. We're always plugged in, we're always focusing on something else, we're always on the go. And so we never really give ourselves time to think. And then we lay down and rest, and our brain's like, all right, now it's time to rev up. And so one thing you can do at night is journal, do like what's called a brain dump, where you just pretty much word vomit everything onto a page. And that can help alleviate some anxieties because you're kind of working through those thoughts. I like doing gratitude journals because it allows us to come up with a win, even if it's like the worst possible day in the world. You have to come up with something that you won. So then you're thinking about the wins. And then another one is sometimes when people get caught in that hamster wheel, focusing more on it, like word vomiting or brain dumping, could be potentially disadvantageous. And so another thing to do is to pull themselves out of that by thinking about what they're going to do tomorrow.
Hmm.
So creating a task or a checklist could be very detailed on what you're going to do tomorrow, can help pull them out of that hamster wheel and get them kind of on the right path. So those are two kind of mindfulness practices. Kind of walk yourself through the path of what would happen. What are the chances of the worst case scenario happening, and then what realistically would happen if that were to actually take place, and then do some form of journaling. Journaling and meditation are kind of synonymous in that respect, where you can meditate and it'll be very therapeutic, very much like journaling. So those are some mindfulness practices that I would do to help with people improving their mental state. And not to turn this into a tangent, but also improving your fitness, losing weight, eating better foods. Those are all going to have a drastic improvement on your overall mental health, because
Hmm.
our mental and physical health are largely interconnected. So if one improves, the other most likely will, and vice versa. If one deteriorates, the other one will as well.
So, for those that may not know, can you just go in detail on how what you consume as a food source, how it could affect you mentally?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. Not to dive like too deep into it. Okay, first,
Hey, some
I'm
gamers may not know what you're talking about.
sure, and I want to preface this by saying one of my catchphrases is limit, don't eliminate. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't be eating. Hell, I'm not even saying you shouldn't go to fast food. You shouldn't eat Taco Bell. You can, but I would suggest a vast majority of your food comes from more whole food sources. And
Mm.
a loose definition of whole food is it closely resembles what it looks like in nature. And so 5-layer burrito, I haven't seen a, a 5-layer burrito out in the wild before. And so something like
Oh, Papa, that was too good. That was too
you're
good.
good. You're good. But something like,
5-layer
fruit,
burrito.
vegetable, fruit, veggies, even like meat and stuff like that. Although there's a level of processing to it, you're gonna still resemble. This is, a cut of beef. This is cut of chicken. So you're still gonna resemble that. So large blanket statement that that's kind of what whole foods are.
Mm.
And if a vast majority of your calories are from that, then roughly 80%, then 20% can be whatever the hell you want. And that's kind of
Mm.
the philosophy that I follow. But your question wasn't that. Your question was how can food negatively affect our health,
Mm-hmm.
or mostly mental health. And
Right.
so think about this. You eat a bunch of fast food. Let's just say junk food in general. Blanket term,
Right.
junk food, kind of a nebulous term, but we kind of all know what it means. You eat a bunch of junk food. You feel extremely bloated, extremely bogged down. You're very tired, lethargic because your body is flooding all the blood to your digestive tract to start breaking down this food. And it might take a little bit longer to process because it's not much as a whole food as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're really bogged down. You're getting a brain fog, and there's always a level of guilt when it comes to that, right? You feel like shit because you just ate a whole bunch and now you feel guilty because of that. Chances are you probably ate late at night, right? And so that's going to affect your sleep. So you're going to sleep like shit because you just are sitting on this food baby essentially. And so we know that sleep is obviously extremely important for your physical health and mental health. And the kicker is really influences our food choices. And to kind of oversimplify it, if we get quality sleep, we don't get the comfort of sleep. So then we then turn towards the comfort of comfort food. So then guess what? We're going to rinse and repeat. We're going to go back to
Right.
Taco Bell because we want that comfort food because we slept like shit and our stress levels and our cortisol levels are really high. And so poor sleep leads, or poor diet can lead to poor sleep. They kind of can go either way. And so with that, when you have poor sleep, this might be getting a little bit too into the weeds, but when you get poor sleep, low quality sleep, stress hormones, cortisol specifically, elevate through your body. And
Mm-hmm.
cortisol is responsible for fight or flight. So if a bear comes at
Right.
you, you can get out of the way, which is very healthy. But having that chronically is not healthy. And
Right.
so we know, again, to take this one step further, we know that if let's say you're walking down the street, real life example, you're walking down the street and a dog comes at you maliciously, a dog attacks you. You dip out, your cortisol levels are going to be spiked because your fight or flight, you're focusing specifically solely on survival, nothing
Mm-hmm.
else. You're not worrying about your exam tomorrow. You're not really worrying about your bills next week. I need to get out of there. I need to survive. And so your body is primed for that. And it actually will spike your white blood cell count, which is responsible for reducing the risk of infections. So
Mm-hmm.
healing. And so it'll spike that. And then the cortisol spikes just in general. And that spike will stay with you for anywhere between 4 and 24 hours. And so if we're out in nature and we get attacked by a bear or a bear comes at us and we dip out, we want to be in a readied state in case that bear comes back. And
Right.
so if that cortisol levels are high, it's actually going to negatively affect our sleep and make us sleep much lighter because we need to be able to wake up and get ready to get out
Mm-hmm.
if the bear comes back. And so food and a low quality sleep can yield those same hormonal responses.
Those
And
same levels.
yeah. Yeah, because what happens is this is a short term, like getting attacked by a bear, getting attacked by a dog. Those are short term singular events, right?
Right.
But going through the stress of life, the stress of this low quality food going through you, and then the stress of low quality sleep, that can all yield these same kind of elevated levels of the stress hormone, and they can stay with you for much longer. And so when you have these elevated levels of cortisol and white blood cell stuff like that,
Woo.
What? Yeah. So you asked. So this is kind of deep into it.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And to take it just one step further, um, this type of stress occurs as well, like with when you're worried about paying your bills at the end of the month, or if your
Oh,
crush likes you, or if you and your spouse
oh,
are going through a breakup. So this is all
oh.
going through, exactly. This is
It's
all
so
going through you.
personal.
Yeah. So this is all going through you, and then when you have these elevated levels of your white blood cells, they get a little trigger happy, and so what happens is they'll start
Mm.
attacking your joints, and so you can now have a
Mm.
direct tie from, I don't want to say Taco Bell, but just an overconsumption of these highly processed comfort foods. Again, emphasis on overconsumption, because it's going to affect your sleep long term, and it's going to increase those stress hormones. And then we'll see a direct response to that, to autoimmune responses like rheumatoid arthritis and other forms of autoimmune disorders. And so that was a not so short answer on how food can negatively affect you.
No, thank you, because that is so, mind opening. I know I was very intrigued. I wasn't aware that it was that much of a impactful level to one's health. Very, very important to know. I do also want to have the opportunity for you to, just give some um, of your favorite exercises that you like to do or that you like to recommend for newbies, whichever you prefer, whether you want to be, what you like, or what you recommend to newbies. So that way, we got some actual exercises in play.
Yeah. Yeah. So good question. I'll say my favorite exercises for myself are purely selfish. And that is, I like pressing. So overhead press and bench press with a
Okay.
barbell. Um, Mainly because the way my limbs are, I'm much stronger at pressing than I am like squatting and deadlifting. And
Okay.
so proportionately, those numbers are higher. So therefore, ego lifts ego gets in it. And I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I like doing Romanian deadlifts, and I like doing like a bent over row. Those are probably some of my favorite exercises. But what I would say, I'm not gonna, I wouldn't have a novice do barbell lifts.
Okay.
And so I guess, to be very boring, I would say my favorite my favorite exercise to recommend is walking.
Mm.
That might feel like a cop out, but walking, like specifically step count, has a direct correlation to reduce risk of cardiovascular disease and other cardiovascular events, I believe. And so the higher your step count, I guess it's an indirect correlation. The higher your step count, the lower your risk. And so getting up to 10,000 steps a day, which might seem like a lot if you only have like 1 or 2,000. Somebody who works sedentary jobs and have sedentary hobbies, they probably get around 1 or 2,000 steps a day.
Right.
So telling them to 5x that seems unrealistic, and it is.
Very, very.
And so like start off with like 500 extra steps, which 100 steps is roughly 1 minute. And so
Mm.
no, yeah. So roughly 1,000 steps is 10 minutes. I was trying to math that down easier, but it didn't work. And so 10 minutes is roughly, like I said, 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 steps. And so go for a
Okay.
10-minute walk. You're going to increase your step count by 10 minutes, or by 1,000.
Wow.
And that's pretty easy, right? You can go for a 10-minute walk, throw on a podcast, throw on this awesome podcast, and
Right.
you'll be good to go. And so I would say start there, slowly, add 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You don't have to necessarily worry about your step count unless you have like a watch or something like that counts it. But just like your overall walking time, go out. I try to get 60 minutes of exercise every day, and whether that's walking, playing on my walking pad there while I'm playing like Pokemon trading card game on here,
Nice.
or I got a bike, hitting the weights, like it's kind of dealer's choice, but I told myself I had to get 60 minutes of exercise in at least.
Right.
Um, so yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long story short, get on, go walking.
Yeah, one body got to take care of it. And so now some of my favorite questions that I've been trying to hold back for the entire questions here. So I saw this on your website, and so I want to know, how do you ensure that your clients can enjoy their favorite foods and activities while still achieving their fitness goals?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And we kind of alluded to it, but don't don't eliminate, limit, don't eliminate. And so I'll be making a post about this, I think tomorrow. No, Thursday. But I actually had a call with, or had a conversation with a client where we're starting to track
Mhm.
calories. Excuse me. We're starting to track calories, and she was looking at, and right now her goal was just to track. Like, it wasn't hit a specific calorie goal. It
Right.
was just to get into the process and get into the groove of tracking. And so she messaged me. She's like, "Hey, I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. I'm looking at this ice cream and it's like 500 calories, and I feel really guilty and I feel shame for it." And so I sent her a video and I was like, "Look, we need to." I didn't say this as abrasively, but we need to look at our calories as like our calorie budget, the
Hmm.
same way we look at our financial budget. And
Right.
so, a brief overview of finances: roughly 50% of your calories, 50% of your income goes towards your bills.
Right. Right.
20, roughly 20 to 30% goes to future savings, and then the other 20 to 30% goes to whatever the hell you want. Because if
Right.
all you're doing is paying your bills, you're probably not happy. Like, if you have no money
Mhm.
left over for the future or for whatever you want, not a life to really live, right? Because you're not happy. And so
Mhm.
that's how we're going to look at our calories. If all of our calories are going towards like the whole food, the not fun food, and we're not really enjoying it. And so if 80% of our calories comes from whole foods, like I mentioned earlier, and 20% goes to whatever the hell we want, then we have 20% of our calories budgeted out specifically for those foods that we enjoy, the indulgences. And, that's the chips, the cookies, cakes, Taco Bell runs. I'm quite partial to Taco Bell. That's why I use
Yeah,
it a
it's
lot.
okay. It's okay.
And so,
They got some fire burritos.
yeah, exactly. And so
And them
that is,
burritos.
yep. And so once you kind of already know, okay, I have 20% of my calories budgeted for this, it is now should be guilt free. There shouldn't be any shame in it because it's all part of the program, right? It's all part of the routine. It's all part of the plan. And so that's a big thing that I preach nutritionally. And then on the movement side of things, it's the same thing. Just try to get out, get some movement. If you're going to be playing games, Saturday night with the boys, and you're going to be sitting down for 8 to 10 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours that day, playing video games, tabletop games, whatever it is, just try to either get some extra movement in Friday and Sunday, or maybe get a little bit of extra movement in before you guys hang out. And so exercise isn't that hard to get in, and it doesn't have to be like a structured workout program at the gym. It could be, parking farther away in the parking lot at your local game store, you know what I mean? Or walking, parking a little ways away and then walking somewhere else, or taking the stairs, etc. And so there's ways to sneak it in. And yeah, so limit, don't eliminate, everything in moderation.
Oh, nice. And so, what would you say are some key differences that you've observed between coaching somebody that their job is to be like a professional athlete, or it's something that it's like they're the game freak, they're like the top 1%,
Mhm.
versus coaching an everyday Joe Schmo?
Yeah. So when I trained professional level athletes when I worked under a coach called Mike Barrows. He was a strength coach for U of M. Prior, he would hit a professional performance facility when I was working under him. And you're everybody wants to work with professional athletes. Like, oh, it'll be so much fun and be so cool. But you're a glorified cheerleader. They pretty much know exactly what they're doing. You just need to tell them, okay, do this on the ladder,
Mhm.
or okay, we're hitting the bench for this many sets and reps at this weight. And so they're like a yes or no sir type of person. They're going to do it. They're obviously driven. They're obviously committed, and you're a glorified cheerleader at that point. And the amount of change that you're going to be able to yield is like negligible, because like a
Mm.
1% change for them is the difference between like first place and fourth place at the Olympics, right? Like, it's a
Right.
big change, but
Right.
it's not going to be that big of a change when it comes to, at least in my opinion, like, first,
Right. Right.
if you're
No,
talking to
I'm
an Olympic
seeing.
athlete.
No, I'm seeing how you're seeing it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking to an Olympic athlete, they're like, yeah, the first difference between first and fourth is a huge change. So yes, they're right. But what I like doing with,
That
working
the
with,
but the impact that you're
yeah,
providing is
exactly.
not. Yeah, I get it. You're
Yeah,
not
exactly.
providing that substance that makes you want to get up, that motivating factor.
Yeah,
My fault. I'm getting hype up. I already know where you're going with this.
yeah, exactly. And so some of my biggest, I say the biggest victories that I celebrate with clients aren't necessarily, the 25-pound weight goal that they lost, the weight loss goal that they had. It's when I get the text saying, hey, I had a really shitty day at work, and all I could think about was I can't wait to get to the gym and work out this frustration.
Mm,
Or things with my spouse are so much better because I now have the energy to be a present spouse, or
mm,
things like that. Or clients who are like, on the darker side, they're like, man, I was on the verge of maybe some self-harm, but now I'm no longer in that state of
Mhm.
mind anymore. And so those are the big victories. And when people start to say, I get to work out versus I have to work out, that right there is a huge mindset shift, because when you start looking at, or once you start looking at exercise as a stress outlet and not a stressor, the game's changed, right? You pretty much won the game, because now it's on easy mode, because what you want to do is conducive to improving your health. And
Mm.
so versus I just want to go home and binge eat Taco Bell and Doritos and play video games because I want to escape where I am now. And so using exercise as that form of stress relief is a huge game changer. And those are the days, those are the victories that I celebrate most.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, so last question regarding this profession here. What would you say as a coach, as somebody that's been doing this for a while? What's that one piece of advice that you would give somebody who's struggling to start their fitness journey?
Start small. Chances are whatever you're thinking is probably too much. And so start small. And then when you come up with something that's small, cut that in half, and probably cut that in half just to be safe. And
Hmm.
so like people, because I don't know why, I haven't dove into the psychology of it. I think it has to do with like a survival mechanism. But when we come into wanting to improve our health,
Hmm.
everybody comes at it with a perfectionist mindset. And the only kind of theory that I have is when we were kind of like hunter gatherers, tribesmen, we needed things, we would look for the imperfections,
Hmm.
because the chink in the armor, or the hole in that wall could literally be life or death. And
Right.
so I think we kind of have that perfectionist mindset when we come to our health and fitness, because it's on some level it is life or death. And so we kind of immediately want to gravitate towards everything being perfect, which sets us up for failure in so many ways. And so instead of saying I need to eat quote unquote clean, whatever that means, and go to the gym 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, we can say, okay, how about instead of doing all that, we just go up and go for a walk a couple times a week and we start tracking our calories. Or
Mm.
I'm a big fan of tracking calories. It's kind of been a bit of a taboo, but I think it's the best way to get an understanding of what you're eating. So we need to figure out where your point A is before we can figure out how far away you are from point B. And
Mm.
so, like just walking and tracking your calories, I guarantee will yield much better results than trying to go to the gym 5 days a week and trying to eat nothing but clean foods. Tracking your calories while eating, granted, hopefully more whole foods, but you can have pizza, Taco Bell, Doritos, Oreos. You can have all of that within moderation and allow yourself those indulgences, because you're going to be sustaining that type of behavior much longer. Will yield much better results, guarantee it, than having that all or nothing perfectionist mindset. And so my advice is no action is too small for you, or no action is, don't think you are above taking a smaller action, because that small action is what's going to motivate you to do more.
Wow, that's actually well said. Now, since this is a gamer's guide to productivity, I have some game questions. All right, so I definitely need to know, what are your top five favorite video games of all time?
Okay. Are we talking individual games or
These could
franchises?
be the game, a board game, a video game. It could be, if you have such a love for a specific uh franchise that you would have them all in your top five and you want to shout out others, you can put that entire franchise as a one.
Okay. Okay. Damn, give me top five out the gate, huh?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to do this in descending order. Man, so five. I can't figure out what my fifth one would be. That is a good question. I guess I'll spew them in not so many. So my number four would probably be Skyrim.
Mm.
Um, I feel like that's on a lot of people's lists, but Skyrim is honestly was a big it had a big impact on me. There's a specific time where I remember having I don't know, one of those, I don't want to say euphoric moments, but long story short, I was house sitting for my aunt who had more money than myself as a high schooler, but also more money than my family, my parents. And so they had
Mhm.
a big flat screen TV, and I was house sitting for them. So I went to the store and I bought an HDMI cable because my TV was the old aux plugins.
Mhm.
And so I bought an HDMI cord for my Xbox 360, plugged in Skyrim on this like 46-inch TV, which by now
Dang.
standards is like a laptop screen, but back in 2011 it was big.
Sheesh.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's
I know.
yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting there in a recliner playing Skyrim, and I'm thinking, this is what life is all about.
Yeah.
So that moment alone is kind of put it on for three. For number four, sorry, or three, four, yeah, number four. And so number three, I would say The Witcher 3 is that,
Ooh.
because I had a very similar experience with The Witcher 3, but a few years later, obviously. And so
Mm.
I feel like The Witcher 3 was a very immersive game, arguably one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I guess it's apparently the third best game ever made. And so, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Cool. So yeah, The Witcher 3, amazing game. Got me to really dive into just the Witcher universe and everything like that, and I loved it.
Mhm.
Number two, Baldur's Gate 3. I don't think that's a shock to anybody. I think that
Mm.
that game also, because I love D&D, obviously. I built a brand around it. And
Yeah.
so I really love D&D, and I think they really captured the freedom that board games give, that tabletop RPGs give you. And I just really loved it. I really, really do. And so my number one is the Pokemon series, the franchise.
Mm.
Probably not a shock to anybody. But that game, I started, like I said, one of my first video games was Pokemon Yellow version, and I have been
Yeah.
playing ever since. And I have, this is more card game, but these are a stack of codes for the Pokemon trading
Mm.
card game, the TCG.
Nice.
And so I was I was doing a lot of work on those. They've been accumulated over like a decade, so it's not like I went and bought them all. But yeah, number one, Pokemon, near and dear to my heart. So that was top four. If I could throw in just a placeholder for number five,
Or an honorable mention.
yeah, I'll say the Tony Hawk series, because Tony Hawk
Mm.
American Wasteland was one of my favorite games growing up, and I feel like most installments of that series are decent. But Tony
Yeah,
Hawk's
they're
Underground
solid.
1, 2, and American Wasteland, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater, those kind of have a very, very safe place in my nostalgic heart, because I kind of grew up on those. So I'll say that's my number five.
No, that's pretty solid. That's pretty solid. Now, if I had to ask you, what game did you put the most hours in?
Damn. Singular game. I would say, I want to say one of the Pokemon games, because I really put in a lot of hours into Pokemon Ruby because I tried to complete it. But I want to say I probably put more hours into Skyrim. I probably put more hours into Skyrim than any other game, with maybe the exception of Fallout 4. I put some time into that.
Did you ever complete any game at 100%?
Yeah. Um, a couple. Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, I did 100% on every difficulty. I literally 100% of that game. And then Shadow of Mordor are the only two games that I can think of off the top of my head that I completed. And then I completed like the national or the Pokedex for a couple Pokemon games, but not the national decks for any of them. Even though I have almost a complete Pokemon Home national decks, if that counts. I'm working on that right now, actually.
If you could quantify for somebody that may not know why you like Pokemon, why do you like Pokemon?
I don't know. I mean, I think it was my fourth birthday when I got Pokemon Yellow with the green Game Boy Color, and so I had like I had four Game Boy games before that with the Fat Boy, but then Pokemon Yellow with the Game Boy Color to where you had the vibrant colors, and I just really liked the. I've always been a fan of the pet mechanic of any game.
Mm.
Like the Beastmaster class is always what I kind of gear towards, and it probably
Ah,
stems from
yeah.
Pokemon. But I've just always liked
Pocket
Pokemon.
monster. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're beast masters is a pocket. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so I think that being kind of like my first real introduction to what a RPG had to offer, I think really kind of solidified it in my brain that this is the way games, I guess, are supposed to be. As my 4-year-old self thought playing Pokemon Yellow. And so that, and I've like almost faithfully played, no, faithfully played every Pokemon game since, every main series game. I don't play a lot of the side games. But yeah, I'm still playing now. I'm running through some of the older games like Legends Arceus and stuff like that.
What would you say would be, if you can still recall, what would you say is your favorite memory gaming?
Oh, of gaming, man. So that story I just said with Skyrim, that was pretty impactful. But there's also a memory that sticks in my head, and I don't think this was my favorite memory, but this was a pretty impactful memory. Is in Ruby and Sapphire. I don't remember which one. I was actually I was being babysat by one of our neighbors because my mom was working, I think, and I had to. Yeah, I was being babysat by them. And if you remember, I don't know if you played or not, but in Gen 3, the legendary birds were what was called roaming. So you had to
Mm-hmm.
find them on the map,
Mm-hmm.
using the Pokédex or the
Yeah.
Pokénav, and you had to find them. And they were MFers to find. And so you had to go through and you had to quick attack them because their
Yeah.
HP wouldn't like reset. They wouldn't heal
Mm-hmm.
themselves. So you had to keep quick attacking them. And
Mm-hmm.
then they'd flee after one attack. And then you have to keep finding them, keep chasing them, keep finding them. And I caught Latias was the first one I caught. So it must have been Silver or Sapphire. So I caught Latias and was just super stoked that after all that hard work, which nowadays kids and probably myself would have been like, nah, screw that, that's boring. Like a lot of grinding I found, because every time you would change routes, they
Mm-hmm.
would change, and so you had to
Right.
time it perfectly so that way when you changed routes, they were in the same route as you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then you encountered them, and so that was a beast in itself. Caught it, caught her, and immediately called my best friend. He said I finally got her, and because he was
Yeah.
saying the same thing. So I think that was probably one of the more impactful moments. And again, stems from Pokemon, right?
No, that's actually pretty solid and pretty cool. And I applaud you for the journey that you've come on, the positivity that you've provided, the clients that you have, as well as others as well. And I do want to give you one final opportunity to let everybody know once again where they can support you, where they can find you, and the services that you have for them if they're interested.
Yeah. No, first, I appreciate you having me on. Second, yeah, if anyone just wants to check out my page, my website's phoenixperformancecoaching.net, as it's on the screen right now. That's a good spot. I'm much more active on my Instagram. Instagram's my main social media. That's at phoenix.performance.coaching. And that's really the best place to get a hold of me. I try to use my Instagram as my website now. So you'll see pretty consistent content. I'm trying to be in my stories, 5 or 6 times a week. So you get to know kind of me personally. And then I try to produce as much high value content as possible. And it's not exercise videos on how to do push-ups properly. It's how to actually actionably improve your health, and so improve your life. And I've been taking a kind of a deep dive on the whole behavior psychology type thing, and so I dive into like the psychology behind it. And on there's a link to our Discord, the Phoenix Nest, and there's a lot of free resources in there, free ebooks. Actually, these 2 books are 2 of the 3 free ebooks that are in there. Video course, workouts, meal plan templates. There's a whole lot of stuff in there, and none of it's locked behind a paywall. So I would say check that out. And if you are interested in just reaching out, having a conversation, just shoot me a DM on Instagram. That'll be the best place to get at me.
Well, guys, you heard it from here. That wraps up an episode of A Gamer's Guide to Productivity. A huge thank you to the guest, the nerdy fitness coach, for sharing amazing expertise, the passion for health, fitness, deep diving into his favorite games. If you're interested in learning more, make sure, again, check out his website, check him out on Instagram, follow him. Make sure, if you like this episode, like, comment, and subscribe. Remember that it's never too late to start your fitness journey. Start at the lowest level possible, and then make sure to do half of that. So that way it helps you become the main character of your own life. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes. And as always, keep gaming, stay productive, and level up. Like, comment, subscribe. It's Nico Pingan out.